Here's the lesson we get from a narcissist, you realize it. Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Narcissist and Karma channel. What, if anything, can we glean about discernment from the life of a serial killer? It's more common than you might imagine. One such serial killer scenario is making headlines this week because the man responsible was finally apprehended after a lengthy crime spree. Listen up. For over 20 years, I've been immersed in the study, contemplation, and investigation of narcissism. When you do that, you'll be paying close attention to the canon of works about serial killers. Malignant narcissism, psychopathy, sociopathy, and the idea of the dark tetrad, narcissism, psychopathy, Machiavellianism, and sadism, are all traits shared by a large percentage of serial killers, according to the extensive criminology literature available today. This last week, I've been following the news about the capture of the Long Island serial murderer wanted in connection with the murders at Gilgo Beach with great interest. He targeted defenseless ladies, asked for sexual favors from them, and then not only killed them but mocked their families as well. It was heartless, and the deaths it caused put a neighborhood on edge for years. They have a suspect in custody after resuming their investigation. I believe this accused criminal was working as an architect and hence was hiding in plain sight. He had a wife, offspring, and a home of his own. There was some financial shadiness in his past, so he didn't start with a blank slate. It was as if he were a resident in a typical American neighborhood. He wasn't exactly living on the outside of society, but he did a terrible job of keeping up those two personas. If I'm being completely honest, I don't think someone like this has a switch that gets flipped. It never occurred to anyone to turn the light on. Those who can do this are masters of disguise and the art of compartmentalization. They are capable of a wide range of behaviors, from sadistic cruelty to punctuality at work and even happy hour. The lack of regret, empathy, and callousness that characterize this approach are constant traits for this group. Any sign of sympathy you would get from such a person would be, at best, fake. The truth is that I couldn't care less about this person. The trial will proceed, and a verdict will be reached. The agony the victim's loved ones must be feeling as they wait this long for even a glimmer of hope of resolution is beyond my comprehension. It appears as though the inquiry was extremely complex and time-consuming. What happens to him, if anything, is more pressing than the outcome of that case. However, there is a part of this narrative, and many like it, that might teach us valuable lessons about how to safeguard ourselves from the hidden poisonous personalities among us. A few things about this narrative and everything else I've read so far have really stuck with me. First, there's a chance we'll put down our discernment because someone has what seems to be a real profession with an education and your average standard life. Married, house, kids. After all, they are following the norms of society and have attained goals that have widespread acceptance. We could make the mistake of presuming they are typical just because the chances favor it. Certainly not. It's not enough to rely on paper credentials alone. Consider a person's character, actions, and interactions with others. I could care less whether they attended 5 elite universities and now work in the corporate world. A person with such a background is just as likely to be narcissistic as one without such baggage. It's possible that the odds of a narcissistic personality run slightly higher among the educated and affluent. Now for the punchline. That stood out to me as something that was frequently mentioned in the coverage of the story. This suspect was described as a neighbor in one story. It was close to the clouds, and its neighbors seemed to be split along the middle. There was the meh, it's just a neighbor group. Didn't pay much attention to him. One group was more along the lines of we are so startled. It's hard to believe this took place in our own community. Shock, horror, awe, and disbelief. Another, smaller number of people commented, kind of creepy. It gave me the creeps. I tried to say hello, but he was strange and unwelcoming. When I saw him coming, I turned away from him. Recall bias, also known as retroactive interference, must of course be taken into consideration when reading these accounts. The arrival of new data has altered our perspective. It's possible that the forthcoming evidence will also affect the people who claim to have found him frightening. But let's consider the idea that there's more to the tale. Some of these folks may have always thought he was frightening, and there are growing tidbits suggesting some people genuinely like this person. This man is not a nice person, but some people are claiming, I didn't notice a thing. What makes some of us view people as dangerous, as someone we should avoid at all costs, while others may say, well, he just seemed like a regular neighbor who had a regular job and brought in his trash cans. That's all right. These evaluations can be influenced by a variety of factors, including our personality, our life experiences, our exposure to toxic, hazardous, or threatening persons in the past, and the severity of any prior trauma. It's possible that those with less social capital are more attuned to these signals and threats. There are a plethora of subtle hints that others provide us. People could find it offensive to call the cranky, harsh, and icy neighbor who occasionally scares them as hostile or egotistical. But I think such hints, however small, are significant. Personality is strange. It's like the drumming that goes on behind the singers. People can appear to be respectable members of society, obnoxious next-door neighbors, hermits, or legitimate members of society due to their occupation, family situation, or way of life. But those are only the words. The personalities and motivations behind people's actions remain unchanged. Narcissism and psychopathy are dangerous personality traits because they can gain respectable employment and prominent social positions, making it appear as though everyone is safe. However, these people have the potential to inflict severe harm upon others. People who are pleasant are kind and open, while those who are oppositional are cold and unfriendly. And that one's character dictates their actions no matter the context. A person's hostility doesn't necessarily preclude them from working, but it could make them unpleasant to be around on the job. But explanations are frequently offered. If some of those neighbors were speaking the truth when they said they felt uneasy around everyone, then the bigger question becomes, how often do we trust that unease within ourselves, even when we meet someone who appears well put together on paper, who ticks the boxes of what is socially valued? Because that's the risk we run when we make assumptions about others based on superficial characteristics, like where they live, what they do for a living, whether or not they're married, or how often they attend to PTA meetings. A simple welcome or discussion requires us to put faith in our gut, observe how we're being handled, and listen carefully to what we're being told. Hello, or a question. If the reaction you get when you act in these ways seems wrong, you should pay attention and not be fooled by the obvious signs. People with hostile personality traits, such as psychopathy, are terrifying because they can commit atrocities while remaining unsuspected. Narcissism, a personality style that is, in my opinion, significantly more nuanced than psychopathy, is the primary emphasis of this channel and my work. Therefore, I believe it has various interpersonal effects on different people. Extremely chilling effects of psychopathy are possible. The assumption we make about superficial characteristics without considering the personality and associated behavior, and the nature of interaction someone has with people. Obviously, in most cases, that person is not going to be a serial killer, but may still be a person who can bring strife or maybe even risk into our lives. This is true whether the antagonism is narcissism, psychopathy, or just a mashup of dysregulation, low empathy, callousness, manipulation, and deceit. Focus on your internal experiences. While it's true that victims of serial killers rarely have a choice in the matter, we nonetheless benefit from being aware of these cues and signals in our day-to-day interactions with others, no matter how seemingly harmless they may seem. The work being done by Brad Bushman and his colleagues at Ohio State on topics like serial killers, violence, aggression, and narcissism is of the highest quality and should interest anyone with an interest in these topics. Their research unequivocally links these aggressive and violent traits to certain personality types. Now, thankfully, serial murder is extremely uncommon. Nonetheless, those who perpetrate such crimes still affect many others through their actions, not just the victims themselves, but also their friends, family, and neighbors. When we read conflicting opinions on the perpetrator in a story like this, we get the impression that some characters understand it, recognize it, and say, something's not right here. Listen to what your gut is telling you. That's not a requirement for anything beyond saying, I need a minute, and I'm not going to talk myself out of it. To become more resistant to the influence of narcissists, discernment is crucial. Let's say that was informative. Again, I appreciate it.